The village school was a simple structure with walls painted a fading white, its tin roof shimmering under the blazing sun. Despite its modesty, it was a place of hope for children like Amina. At 12, she was the brightest student in her class, known for her quick wit and insatiable curiosity. Her teachers often spoke of her as a future leader, someone destined for greatness beyond the dusty paths of her village. That morning, her parents had walked her to school. Their faces were lined with worry, but they masked their concerns with tight smiles. "We'll be back before evening," her father reassured her as he placed a hand on her shoulder. Her mother hugged her tightly before they both turned and disappeared into the bustling marketplace. Classes passed in their usual rhythm, with Amina excelling in every subject. But as the final bell rang, she noticed a shift in the air. The other children scattered to their homes, their laughter fading into the distance. Amina waited patiently on the school steps, her books clutched to her chest. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the empty schoolyard. By the time darkness fell, her confidence began to waver. The kerosene lamp at the teacher's desk flickered as the headmistress locked the main door. "You're still here?" she asked, her tone laced with concern. "Yes, Ma. My parents will come soon," Amina replied, though her voice trembled slightly. The headmistress hesitated but eventually left, assuring Amina that someone would return in the morning. Alone now, Amina sat on the wooden bench outside the classroom. The once welcoming schoolyard seemed unfamiliar in the moonlight, the swings creaking softly in the breeze. Hours passed, and the chirping of crickets was interrupted by an unsettling stillness. Amina tried to distract herself by reading her textbook under the pale glow of the moon. But the pages blurred as exhaustion and unease took hold. Then came the sound. A low, distant thud echoed through the yard. Amina froze, her heartbeat quickening. She strained her ears, hoping she had imagined it. But the noise came again, this time closer, a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the ground. "Amina." A voice, faint and distorted, whispered her name. She whipped her head around, searching for the source, but saw nothing beyond the shadows. Her breath hitched as she realized the sound was coming from the direction of the old storage shed, a place the students avoided because of the ghost stories passed down over the years. The urge to run was strong, but curiosity, a trait that had always defined her, held her in place. Gripping her schoolbag tightly, Amina rose to her feet, her legs trembling. She took a hesitant step forward, toward the source of the noise. The silence around her seemed to deepen, pressing against her like an invisible force. And then, from the darkness of the shed, a faint glimmer of light appeared, dancing like a flame. "Who's there?" Amina called out, her voice barely audible. The light flickered once more, and then everything went still. Amina awoke with a start, her head resting against the rough wooden bench outside her classroom. The first rays of dawn were breaking through the clouds, painting the horizon in hues of pink and orange. But the schoolyard was eerily quiet. The usual sounds of children arriving, teachers chatting, and birds singing were conspicuously absent. Her parents still hadn't come. Amina's heart sank as the weight of her situation pressed against her chest. She was truly alone. The events of the previous night came rushing back, the strange noises, the faint light near the old storage shed. A shiver ran down her spine. Her village had always whispered about the schoolyard being cursed, haunted by the spirit of a forgotten guardian. She had dismissed the tales as nothing more than stories meant to frighten children. But now, in the emptiness of the morning, those rumors felt disturbingly real. Her stomach growled, a sharp reminder of how long it had been since her last meal. Determined to find some kind of shelter, or answers, Amina stood and adjusted her school bag on her shoulder. Her eyes drifted toward the storage shed at the edge of the yard, its rusted door slightly ajar. The sight sent a chill down her spine, but something about it also called to her, as if an invisible thread was pulling her toward it. Gathering her courage, she crossed the yard. The shed was small and dilapidated, its roof sagging under the weight of years. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of damp earth lingered. Sunlight filtered through cracks in the wooden planks, illuminating a collection of forgotten objects, broken desks, cracked slates, and rusted tools. As she stepped further inside, her foot struck something solid. Looking down, she saw an intricately carved stone half buried in the dirt. Its surface was covered in symbols and markings that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Curious, she knelt to brush away the dirt, revealing more of the carvings. The symbols weren't familiar to her, but at the center of the stone was something she recognized, a riddle, written in the village's ancient dialect. When the moon hides its face and the earth stands still, seek the path where shadows spill. Under the watchful eye of the guardian true, a treasure awaits for the chosen few. Amina's fingers traced the etched letters as her mind raced. The moon hiding its face, the next new moon wasn't far off. But what did it mean by the path where shadows spill? And who, or what, was the guardian true? As she studied the stone, her hand brushed against something metallic nearby. She pulled it out from the dirt, a small, ornate key, its design matching the carvings on the stone. Her heart pounded as a strange excitement mixed with fear. What had she stumbled upon? Outside, the morning had grown unevenly silent. Amina's instincts told her that whatever secrets the schoolyard held, they were deeply tied to her village's past. The riddle seemed to point to a hidden path, one that might lead her to answers or danger. Either way, she knew she had no choice but to follow where it led. Clutching the key and the riddle firmly in her hands, Amina stepped out of the shed, her eyes scanning the schoolyard. The shadows were still long, stretching across the ground like dark veins. Somewhere in those shadows, she was certain, lay the path the riddle spoke of. Determined and unshaken, Amina whispered under her breath, "If the guardian is watching, then show me the way." And with that, she began her search, the ancient key in her hand glinting faintly in the morning light. The key weighed heavily in Amina's pocket as she stood at the edge of the forest. The towering trees loomed before her like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches twisting into the pale morning sky. For as long as she could remember, the forest had been a place of mystery and fear, whispered about in the village with equal parts awe and dread. They called it Inenda, the living forest, a place where no one entered without the forest deciding if they would return. Her parents were nowhere to be found, and the riddle on the stone seemed to lead nowhere within the schoolyard. Her only choice, she thought, was to venture into the forest. Perhaps the answer to why she was left behind, and what the riddle meant, lay within its depths. Clutching her schoolbag tightly, Amina stepped forward, the crunch of leaves underfoot breaking the stillness. The deeper she went, the denser the forest became, the sunlight barely penetrating the thick canopy above. Shadows danced around her, and strange sounds echoed in the distance, rustling leaves, faint whispers, and the occasional, haunting call of unseen creatures. Her heart raced, but she pressed on, her mind fixed on the riddle and the mysterious key in her pocket. She had no idea how long she had been walking when she came across a clearing. At its center stood a massive baobab tree, its trunk as wide as a house. Amina paused, sensing something strange about the place. The air here was heavy, charged with an energy she couldn't explain. "Child," a voice croaked from above. Amina gasped, spinning around to find the source. Sitting on a low-hanging branch of the baobab was a bird unlike any she had ever seen. Its feathers shimmered with hues of gold and blue, and its eyes glowed with an intelligence that made Amina shiver. "You look lost," the bird said, its voice soft yet commanding. Amina blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. You can talk." "Of course," the bird replied with a hint of impatience. "This is Nenda. Nothing here is as it seems." She stepped closer, her fear momentarily forgotten. Do you know why my parents left me? Why I'm alone? The bird tilted its head, as if considering her question. The answer lies beyond the river of truth, it said cryptically. But be warned, child, the truth is not always what you wish to hear. The river of truth. Amina echoed. Where is it? How do I find it? The bird spread its wings, the golden feathers catching what little light filtered through the trees. Follow the sound of water, and it will lead you. But beware the forest trials, for it will test your resolve. Before Amina could ask more, the bird took flight, disappearing into the dense foliage. The clearing fell silent once more, and Amina was left with more questions than answers. Her desperation outweighed her fear as she began walking again, listening intently for the sound of running water. The forest seemed to grow darker and more oppressive with each step, as if it were testing her courage. She tripped over roots, her hands scraped against rough bark, and the eerie cries of unseen creatures sent shivers down her spine. Finally, after what felt like hours, she heard it, the faint, soothing sound of water flowing. She quickened her pace, her legs trembling with exhaustion, until she reached the wide, shimmering river. The water was crystal clear, reflecting the trees and sky like a mirror. It seemed to glow faintly, as if imbued with some otherworldly power. Amina hesitated at the river's edge, her reflection staring back at her. The cryptic warning of the bird echoed in her mind. What would she find here? And could she face it? She knelt, dipping her fingers into the cool water. A sudden ripple spread across the surface, distorting her reflection. Then, as if in response to her touch, an image began to form in the water, an image that made her heart stop. It was her parents, their faces drawn with sorrow, standing before a figure cloaked in shadow. The river shimmered like liquid silver, its surface unnaturally still despite the faint sound of flowing water. Amina watched in awe as the distorted image of her parents faded, replaced by swirling patterns of light that seemed to rise from the river itself. Then, the air grew colder, and a soft hum filled the clearing. From the center of the river, ripples formed, spreading outward until a figure emerged from the water. Amina stepped back, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. The figure was a woman, but unlike anyone Amina had ever seen. Her skin glowed faintly, as if lit from within, and her flowing robe shimmered like sunlight on water. Her hair cascaded in waves, appearing both solid and liquid at the same time. Her eyes, deep and knowing, locked onto Amina's. "Welcome, child," the woman said, her voice resonating like a melody carried on the wind. "I am Zaira, the guardian of the river of truth." Amina swallowed hard, her voice catching in her throat. Are you here to help me?" Zaira tilted her head, studying Amina with an unreadable expression. "That depends," she said. "The river shows many truths, but not all are easy to bear. What you seek lies tangled in forces beyond your understanding, forces that have ensnared your family." Amina's hands clenched at her sides. "I'll do whatever it takes. Please, just tell me what's happening to my parents." The guardian's eyes softened. "Your parents are under a spell," she said. "A spell cast by one who walks among you, someone they once trusted. This spell binds their actions and keeps them from returning to you." Amina's breath hitched. "Who would do such a thing? And why?" Zaira's gaze grew distant, as if peering into a world only she could see. "The one responsible seeks to control what lies beneath this forest, a power ancient and dangerous. Your parents were caught in their web, and only you can break it." "But how?" Amina asked, desperation creeping into her voice. The guardian stepped closer, her form radiating warmth despite the cold air. "To break the spell and protect your family, you must retrieve the heart of Lomoa, a sacred object hidden deep within the forest. It is the source of the forest's enchantment and the key to unraveling the spell. But beware, child, for the path to the heart is fraught with trials. Amina's stomach churned at the thought of venturing deeper into the forest, but she squared her shoulders. I'll do it. Tell me where to find it. Zaira smiled faintly, a glimmer of approval in her eyes. Courage is the first step. The heart lies within the cave of whispers, hidden beneath the roots of the oldest tree in Inenda. To reach it, you must pass 3 trials, of fear, of trust, and of sacrifice. What happens if I fail? Amina asked, her voice trembling slightly. The forest will claim you, Zaira said simply. But I believe in you, Amina. You carry a light within you that even the darkness of Inenda cannot snuff out. With a graceful motion, Zaira raised her hand. A small, glowing orb appeared, floating toward Amina. Take this, the guardian said. It will guide you to the tree. But remember, the trials will test not just your strength, but your heart. Be true to yourself, and you may yet succeed. The orb hovered near Amina's outstretched hand, its warmth reassuring. As soon as her fingers brushed against it, the orb sank into her palm, filling her with a strange sense of calm. I won't let my parents down, Amina said, her voice steady. Zaira nodded, her form beginning to dissolve into the mist. Then go, child, and may the river's truth guide you. As the guardian vanished, the forest around Amina seemed to shift, the trees leaning as if pointing her in a new direction. Clutching the warmth of the orb in her hand, she took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face the trials that awaited her. The path guided by the glowing orb grew darker as Amina ventured deeper into the forest. The trees, once tall and imposing, now felt alive, their branches twisting and creaking as if they watched her every move. Eventually, the orb led her to the mouth of a cave. The entrance was jagged and narrow, with faint blue light flickering from deep within. This must be it, Amina whispered, clutching the orb tightly. Her heartbeat quickened as she stepped inside. The cave's interior was cold and damp, the walls glittering with crystal informations that reflected the faint glow of the blue light. At the center of the cavern, resting on a pedestal of stone, was a pearl that seemed to radiate an otherworldly energy. It glowed brighter than anything Amina had ever seen, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. As she approached, the air grew heavier, and a voice echoed through the cave, sharp and mocking. A little girl, all alone in the forest. How delightful. Amina froze. The voice seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Who's there? She demanded, her voice steady despite her fear. A gust of wind swirled around her, and from the shadows emerged a figure, a mischievous spirit with elongated limbs, sharp features, and eyes that gleamed with mischief. It hovered above the ground, its translucent body shifting like smoke. I am a local, keeper of this cave, the spirit said, circling her. And that, it added, gesturing to the pearl, is mine. If you want it, you have to earn it. Amina straightened her back, her mind racing. What do you want from me? A local grinned, revealing a set of sharp, uneven teeth. A game, of course. I adore games. Win, and the pearl is yours. Lose, and, well, let's just say you stay here. Forever. Amina swallowed hard but nodded. What's the game? The spirit clapped its hands, and 3 identical pearls materialized on the pedestal. Simple. One of these pearls is the one you seek. The others are cursed. Choose wisely. The spirit's grin widened as it hovered over the pedestal, clearly confident in its trickery. Amina stared at the pearls, her thoughts racing. She couldn't rely on luck. There had to be a way to outsmart the spirit. She crouched down, examining the pearls closely, noticing faint differences in their glow and texture. Why are you taking so long? A local taunted, lounging midair. Tick-tock, little one. Ignoring the taunts, Amina reached into her school bag and pulled out a notebook and pencil. She quickly jotted down observations about the pearls, the way the light reflected off them, their subtle pulsations, and the faint markings on their surfaces. As she walked, she recalled her teacher's lesson on patterns and deduction. Then it clicked. The real pearl's glow had a unique rhythm, matching the pulsing energy she had felt earlier in the cave. The others flickered inconsistently. Confident, Amina pointed to the middle pearl. That one. Eloko's grin faltered. Are you sure? It asked, though the sharp edge in its voice betrayed its irritation. Yes, Amina said firmly. The spirit sighed dramatically and waved a hand. The other two pearls dissolved into nothingness, leaving only the one she had chosen. You win, clever girl. Take your prize. The pearl floated toward her, warm and humming with energy. As she grasped it, the cave brightened, and Eloko's form began to fade. You've proven your wit, the spirit said. But your journey is far from over. Beware of those you trust. With that, Eloko vanished, leaving Amina alone with the glowing pearl. As she stepped out of the cave, the forest seemed less oppressive, the air lighter. The pearl in her hand shimmered, and within its glow, an image appeared, her parents kneeling before a familiar figure. Amina gasped as recognition dawned. It was Uncle Baraka, her father's closest friend, standing over them with an expression she had never seen before, cold, calculating, and cruel. No, Amina whispered, her stomach churning. Uncle Baraka, the man who had taught her to read and who had always brought her sweets, was somehow involved in her parents' suffering. The guardian's voice echoed faintly in her mind, the trials would test not just your strength, but your heart. Tears stung her eyes, but she tightened her grip on the pearl and set her jaw. She couldn't falter now. Whatever Uncle Baraka's role in this was, she would uncover the truth and save her parents. The forest seemed to shift as Amina left the cave, the path ahead more vivid and alive. The orb in her hand glowed softly, guiding her forward. She felt the weight of the pearl in her pocket, a tangible reminder of her victory and the chilling revelation of Uncle Baraka's betrayal. Her determination solidified, she would do whatever it took to free her parents. Eventually, the orb led her to a grove unlike anything she had ever seen. Towering trees, their trunks wide and ancient, encircled the clearing. Their bark was silvery, almost metallic, and their leaves shimmered faintly as if whispering secrets to the wind. The air was thick with a mystical energy, and the soft murmurs of the trees grew louder as Amina stepped into the grove. This must be the whispering trees, Amina said aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. The trees seemed to hear her, their murmurs shifting to a language she could understand. Welcome, child of the forgotten bloodline, one of the trees intoned, its voice deep and resonant, like the creak of an old door. Amina frowned, her brow furrowed. Forgotten bloodline. What are you talking about? Another tree spoke, its voice softer but no less commanding. To break the spell upon your kin, you must first learn the truth of yourself. We speak in riddles, solve them, and the answers will be revealed. The trees began to hum in unison, their voices blending into an eerie melody. Then, a single riddle echoed through the grove. I am not alive, yet I grow. I lack lungs, yet I breathe. I lack a mouth, yet water gives me life. What am I? Amina's mind raced. She had always loved riddles, but in the charged atmosphere of the grove, the pressure felt immense. She replayed the words in her mind, pacing in the clearing. Not alive, yet it grows. No lungs, yet it breathes. Her eyes wandered to the trees around her, and the answer clicked. A tree, she said, her voice confident. A tree is the answer. The hum of the grove intensified, and the trees' voices shifted, this time more melodic. Correct, child. But there is more to learn. Another riddle followed. I can be cracked, made, told, and played. What am I? This time, Amina smiled faintly. The answer was simpler than the last. A joke. The trees rustled approvingly, their voices now a chorus. Well done. One final riddle remains, and with it, the truth of your lineage. The grove fell silent for a moment before the final riddle was spoken, its tone solemn. I am passed down but never sold. I am carried yet unseen. I am the root of power untold. What am I? This one gave Amina pause. It felt different, as if the answer held a deeper significance. Her fingers brushed against the pearl in her pocket, her thoughts drifting to her parents and the words of the guardian. The truth of herself. The root of her power. Bloodline, she whispered. The answer is a bloodline. The grove erupted in a harmonious symphony, the trees' leaves shimmering like stars. A voice, stronger than the rest, spoke. Correct. You are the last of an ancient lineage, bound to the magic of this forest. Your blood carries the strength to command the forces that protect this land, a gift passed down through generations. Amina staggered back, the revelation sinking in. I have magic. Indeed, the trees replied. It has always been within you, waiting to be awakened. Your journey has unlocked its first spark. But beware, your power will draw both allies and enemies. Use it wisely. One of the trees extended a branch, and from its tip grew a staff carved from the same silver bark as the trees themselves. At its top was a crystal that pulsed with the same energy as the pearl. Amina hesitated, then took the staff, its weight light yet reassuring in her hands. This will aid you in the trials ahead, the grove intoned. And now, you must go. The forest calls you to its deepest heart. The orb in her hand glowed brighter, pulling her toward a path that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Amina looked back at the grove, her resolve stronger than ever. She was no longer just a lost girl searching for her parents. She was the heir to a forgotten legacy, and the weight of her lineage now rested on her young shoulders. With the staff in hand, she stepped onto the path, ready to face the trials yet to come. Amina stepped out of the forest, her heart heavy with anticipation and dread. The village lay ahead, eerily silent, its once lively streets now deserted. The morning sun cast long shadows over the mud brick houses, and the air was thick with a sense of foreboding. Her grip on the silvery staff tightened as she walked through the empty pathways, her eyes scanning for any sign of life. Doors were shut, windows dark, and even the marketplace, usually bustling with chatter and laughter, was completely still. What happened here? Amina murmured, her voice trembling. As she passed the well in the center of the village, a faint sound reached her ears, a low, melodic humming, haunting and hypnotic. It drew her toward the largest hut at the far end of the village, a place rarely visited except for matters of great importance. It was the home of Ogonda, the village sorcerer, a man her parents had always trusted. Amina hesitated at the threshold, the faint hum now a rhythmic chant. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the heavy wooden door. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of herbs. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from a circle of flickering candles surrounding a figure seated cross-legged in the center. Ogonda. The sorcerer's eyes snapped open as the door creaked. His gaze, sharp and calculating, landed on Amina. He was a tall, gaunt man with robes that shimmered like oil on water. His face, once kind and wise, now bore a cruel smirk. So, the child has returned, he said, his voice dripping with mockery. I wondered how long it would take. Amina stepped forward, her resolve hardening. Where are my parents? What have you done to them? Ogonda chuckled, the sound cold and hollow. Your parents? Oh, they are safe, for now. But you, you are the real prize. What do you mean? Amina demanded, though her heart pounded in her chest. Ogonda rose to his feet, his shadow stretching unnaturally across the walls. For years, I served this village, watching as your family basked in the power they kept hidden. Your lineage, your connection to the forest, it should have been mine. But no, the gift skipped over me, choosing your bloodline instead. Amina's breath caught. You cast a spell on my parents out of jealousy. Jealousy. Ogonda spat, his voice rising. It is justice. Your family has hoarded what should belong to us all. With them under my control, and now with you, I will unlock the full power of the forest. The heart of Lomora will answer to me. Amina's eyes narrowed, her grip on the staff tightening. You're wrong. The forest doesn't obey greed. It chose my family because we protect it. Ogonda's smirk deepened, and with a wave of his hand, the candles flared, their flames turning an ominous green. Dark tendrils of smoke began to swirl around Amina, coiling like snakes. Protect it all you want, Ogonda sneered. But first, you have to survive. The tendrils lunged at her, binding her arms and legs. Amina struggled, but the smoke tightened, sapping her strength. Ogonda's laugh echoed through the room as he began chanting in a language Amina didn't recognize. The walls of the hut seemed to close in, the air growing heavier with every word. For a moment, panic threatened to overtake her. But then, a faint warmth pulsed from the staff in her hand. The memory of the whispering trees and their revelation filled her mind. You carry the strength to command the forces that protect this land. Closing her eyes, Amina focused on the warmth, letting it spread through her body. The staff began to glow, its light piercing through the smoke. Ogonda's chant faltered as the tendrils loosened their grip. No! Ogonda roared, his eyes wide with fury. Amina opened her eyes, now blazing with determination. She raised the staff, its light growing brighter. The forest didn't choose you, Ogonda, because you only seek to take. It chose me because I protect. With a burst of energy, the staff unleashed a wave of light, scattering the smoke and throwing Ogonda backward. He slammed into the far wall, his robe smoldering. The candles flickered out, plunging the room into darkness save for the glow of Amina's staff. Ogonda lay on the ground, panting and glaring at her. You think you've won, child? This is far from over. Before Amina could respond, Ogonda raised his hand, and a swirling vortex of shadows enveloped him. In an instant, he was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of burning herbs. Amina sank to her knees, the staff dimming as exhaustion washed over her. The hut was silent now, but the battle was far from over. Ogonda's words echoed in her mind, a chilling reminder of the danger still ahead. Gathering her strength, she rose, gripping the staff tightly. Somewhere in the village, or the forest, her parents were still under Ogonda's spell. And now, she had no doubt that he would stop at nothing to seize the heart of Lomora. But Amina was no longer just a scared girl. She was the guardian's heir, and she would not rest until her family, and her village, was free. The oppressive silence of Ogonda's hut lingered long after he vanished, leaving Amina alone in the dim room. She leaned against her staff, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Her strength was waning, and doubt threatened to creep into her thoughts. The sorcerer's words echoed in her mind, a chilling reminder of the power he wielded and the danger her parents still faced. As the flickering light of her staff began to dim, Amina closed her eyes, her lips trembling with a silent plea. I can't do this alone. Please, someone, help me. A faint warmth blossomed in her chest, spreading through her body. The air around her grew still, and then she heard it, a soft, familiar voice, like a lullaby carried on the wind. Amina, my brave one. Her eyes flew open, and she gasped. Before her stood the shimmering figure of her grandmother, Naya. Her presence was ethereal, her features glowing with a gentle light. She wore the same vibrant chitinge wrap Amina remembered from her childhood, her smile warm and full of love. Grandmother, Amina whispered, her voice breaking. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached out, though her hand passed through the glowing figure. Yes, my dear one, Naya said softly. You have called upon the power of our ancestors, and I am here to guide you. Amina felt a wave of relief wash over her. I don't know if I can do this. Ogonda is so powerful, and I'm just, she faltered, looking down at her trembling hands. Naya stepped closer, her voice steady and soothing. You are far more than you believe, Amina. Our bloodline carries the strength of generations, rooted in the magic of the forest and the wisdom of the land. That power is yours to wield, but it must be tempered with courage and unity. Amina nodded, though fear still lingered in her heart. He wants the heart of Lomora, grandmother. He wants to use it for himself. How can I stop him? Naya's expression grew somber. Ogonda's envy blinds him, but his power is real. To defeat him, you must break the spell that binds your parents. Their strength, combined with yours, is the only way to truly face him. But how do I free them? Amina asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Naya gestured toward Amina's staff. The heart of Lomora responds to unity and selflessness. Your parents' connection to the forest remains strong, even under Ogonda's spell. Use the staff to channel your energy into their bond, and you will awaken them. But be warned, Ogonda will sense the disruption and come for you. You must be ready for the final challenge. Amina swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the staff. What if I fail? Naya smiled gently, her form flickering like a candle flame. Failure is only possible if you lose faith in yourself. Remember, you are not alone. The forest stands with you. The spirits of your ancestors walk beside you. The glow around Naya began to fade, and Amina's chest tightened. Wait, grandmother. Will I see you again? Naya's voice grew faint, her image dissolving into the air. I am always with you, my brave one. Trust in the light within you. As the last traces of her grandmother's spirit disappeared, the room seemed to brighten, the air lighter than before. Amina felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through her veins. She couldn't let Ogonda's darkness overshadow the legacy of her ancestors. With a deep breath, she stepped out of the hut and into the village square. The silence was unnerving, but her steps were steady. She raised the staff, its crystal glowing brighter with every step, and called out to the forest. Guide me to my parents. The orb within the staff flared, casting a beam of light that pointed toward a distant clearing at the edge of the village. Amina didn't hesitate. She followed the light, her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. As she walked, a sense of unity with the forest and her ancestors grew stronger. She was no longer just a frightened girl. She was the keeper of her family's legacy, the protector of the forest, and the hope of her village. But the final challenge loomed ahead, and Amina knew it would test her like never before. Amina arrived at the clearing where the staff's light had guided her. Her heart ached as she saw her parents, kneeling at the center of a strange, glowing circle etched into the ground. Their faces were blank, their eyes vacant, as if the very essence of their spirits had been drained. Around them, the air crackled with the remnants of Ogonda's dark magic. She knew she didn't have much time. The spell binding her parents was deeply rooted, and disrupting it would undoubtedly alert Ogonda. Yet, Amina's resolve was unshakable. She had come too far to falter now. Drawing a deep breath, she raised the staff, channeling the knowledge imparted by the whispering trees and the wisdom of her grandmother. She closed her eyes and focused on the circle, feeling the threads of magic that held it together. Slowly, she began to unravel them, guiding the light of the staff to counter the dark forces. The ground beneath her feet trembled, and the circle's glow began to flicker. Amina's parents stirred, their faces showing the first hints of awareness. But just as she thought she was making progress, a chilling laugh echoed through the clearing. Well, Ogonda's voice rang out, dripping with mockery. The little guardian thinks she can outmatch me. Amina spun around to see the sorcerer stepping out of the shadows, his robe swirling as if alive. His eyes burned with fury, yet a smirk tugged at his lips. You've underestimated me, child. Amina held her ground, gripping the staff tightly. It's you who underestimates me, Ogonda. Ogonda raised his hands, dark energy swirling at his fingertips. Let's see if that confidence lasts. Instead of panicking, Amina remembered her grandmother's advice, use your mind. The forest chose you not just for your magic, but for your heart and wit. She quickly scanned the clearing, her eyes landing on the magical artifact she had retrieved from the whispering trees. The artifact paused faintly in her pocket, as if sensing her need. Ogonda unleashed a bolt of dark energy, but Amina dodged, her mind racing. She needed to turn the sorcerer's power against him. With a flick of her wrist, she withdrew the artifact, let a shard of crystal glowing with silver light, and held it high. You want power, Ogonda, she called, her voice steady despite her fear. Then take this. The sorcerer paused, his gaze fixed on the crystal. His smirk faltered, replaced by curiosity. What is that? He demanded. It's the key to the heart of Lamora, Amina lied, her voice calm and confident. But only someone worthy can unlock its power. Wouldn't you like to try? Ogonda's greed flared, and he lowered his hands, his dark energy dissipating. Give it to me, he demanded, stepping closer. Amina feigned hesitation, holding the artifact out as if to offer it. As Ogonda reached for it, she whispered a spell her grandmother had taught her, a spell of reflection. The moment his fingers touched the crystal, its light flared, reversing the flow of his magic back onto him. No! Ogonda roared as the artifact amplified his own power, sending him staggering backward. His dark energy recoiled, crackling around him like a storm. He dropped to one knee, his strength temporarily sapped. Amina seized the opportunity. She turned back to her parents and focused all her energy on breaking the spell. The staff glowed brighter than ever, and the circle shattered with a deafening crack. Her parents gasped, their eyes regaining their clarity as they collapsed into Amina's arms. Mama, Baba. Amina cried, tears streaming down her face. Her parents clung to her, their strength slowly returning. Ogonda, weakened but not defeated, rose unsteadily to his feet. His eyes blazed with hatred. You may have won this round, girl, he hissed. But this isn't over. You'll regret crossing me. With a sweep of his robes, he conjured a portal of swirling shadows. Enjoy your victory while it lasts, little guardian. I'll be back, with power you can't even imagine. And with that, he disappeared into the void, leaving the clearing eerily silent once more. Amina helped her parents to their feet, her mind racing with the implications of Ogonda's threat. She had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The sorcerer's retreat meant he would return stronger and more dangerous. As they made their way back to the village, Amina tightened her grip on the staff, her resolve unwavering. She knew the road ahead would be perilous, but she wasn't the same frightened girl she had been when this journey began. She was the heir to a legacy, the protector of her family and her village. And no matter what came next, she would be ready. The village, once quiet and subdued under the shadow of Ogonda's dark influence, now buzzed with determined energy. Amina stood at the heart of it all, her parents by her side, and the elders of the village gathered around her. The villagers, hearing of Ogonda's betrayal, had come together in a show of unity not seen in generations. Amina held the silvery staff tightly as she addressed them, her voice steady and resolute. Ogonda thinks he can tear us apart with fear and darkness. But he doesn't understand our strength. Together, we are more powerful than any magic he can summon. The elders nodded in agreement, and one of them, an old woman named Nafula, stepped forward. You carry the spirit of the forest, child, she said. We will follow your lead. Before Amina could respond, a chill swept through the air, sending a ripple of unease through the crowd. The sky darkened unnaturally, and from the edge of the village, a swirling portal of shadows erupted. Ogonda emerged, his robes billowing and his face twisted with rage. You dare defy me, he roared, his voice booming across the village. Then witness the power of the shadows. He raised his hands, and the ground trembled as a monstrous beast clawed its way out of the portal. It was a hulking mass of writhing shadows, its glowing red eyes burning with malice. The villagers gasped and stepped back in fear as the creature let out an ear-splitting roar, its form shifting and growing larger with each second. Amina stepped forward, her staff glowing with a brilliant light. Your tricks won't work here, Ogonda, she said, her voice unwavering. This village is stronger than you think. Ogonda sneered. We'll see how strong you are when this beast tears your precious unity apart. The beast lunged, its massive claws swiping at the villagers. Amina reacted instantly, raising her staff to create a barrier of shimmering light that repelled the attack. Now, she shouted. Stick to the plan. The villagers sprang into action. Armed with tools, torches, and their own determination, they encircled the beast, working together to drive it back. The elders chanted ancient incantations, their combined voices resonating with the magic of the forest. Amina's parents stood beside her, their hands clasped around smaller relics imbued with protective energy. Amina closed her eyes, focusing on the power of her ancestors. She felt their presence around her, their strength flowing through her veins. The staff in her hand pulsed with energy, and she directed it toward the beast, targeting the core of its shadowy form. The creature howled in pain as beams of light pierced through it, its dark tendrils retreating. But Ogonda wasn't finished. He raised his hands again, drawing more power from the shadows, and the beast grew even more ferocious. You cannot defeat me, Ogonda bellowed. Darkness will always consume the light. Amina opened her eyes, their glow matching the intensity of her staff. You're wrong, Ogonda. Light shines brightest in unity. She raised the staff high, its light spreading to the villagers and their weapons. The torches burned brighter, the elders' chants grew louder, and even the smallest relics began to hum with energy. The villagers pressed their attack, their combined efforts overwhelming the shadow beast. As the beast weakened, Ogonda's control over it faltered. He stumbled back, his face twisted with disbelief. No. This cannot be. Amina stepped forward, channeling the full force of her magic into the staff. This ends now, Ogonda. Your darkness has no place here. With a final surge of light, the staff unleashed a wave of energy that engulfed the beast, dissolving it into nothingness. The shockwave knocked Ogonda to the ground, his dark magic crumbling around him. The portal of shadows collapsed, and the sky began to clear. The villagers surrounded Ogonda, their faces resolute. The elders stepped forward, their voices firm. Your greed and hatred have no place among us. You are banished from this land. Ogonda, his power shattered, glared at Amina one last time. This isn't over, girl. You may have won today, but darkness always finds a way. The elders raised their hands, chanting a binding spell that sealed Ogonda's magic and banished him from the village. A flash of light marked his disappearance, leaving only silence in his wake. As the villagers erupted into cheers, Amina lowered her staff, exhaustion finally catching up to her. Her parents embraced her tightly, their pride and gratitude evident. You've saved us all, her father said, his voice choked with emotion. Amina looked around at the village, now bathed in sunlight and filled with hope. We saved each other, she said, her voice soft but firm. The battle was over, but Amina knew the forest would always need a guardian. And as she stood surrounded by her family and her village, she knew she was ready to embrace her role, whatever challenges lay ahead. The village square was quiet as Ogonda lay on the ground, stripped of his power and surrounded by the people he had sought to dominate. The elders stood firm, their magic binding him, while the villagers watched with a mix of anger and relief. Amina, her staff still glowing faintly, stepped forward, her gaze steady. Ogonda's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something other than fury in them. His face, once twisted with rage, now showed exhaustion and defeat. Yet beneath it all, there was something else, pain. "You've won," Ogonda muttered, his voice hoarse. "Do what you will. It doesn't matter anymore." The crowd murmured, some calling for him to be cast out, others demanding justice for the pain he had caused. But Amina raised her hand, and the voices quieted. "No," she said softly. "It does matter." Ogonda's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" Amina knelt before him, her staff resting at her side. "You wanted power because you felt you were denied something. You let envy consume you until it turned into hate. But it doesn't have to end this way." The villagers gasped, and one of the elders stepped forward. "Amina, he betrayed us. He hurt your family. He—" "I know," Amina interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "But if we cast him out now, we are only continuing the cycle of hatred and pain. What if we gave him a chance to make things right?" Ogonda stared at her, stunned. "Why would you do that? After everything I've done?" Amina met his gaze, her eyes filled with compassion. "Because I believe everyone deserves a chance to change. Even you." Tears welled in Ogonda's eyes, and he looked away, his voice barely a whisper. "You don't understand. I was never supposed to be the village sorcerer. My older brother was meant to take the role, but he disappeared in the forest when I was young. My family blamed me. The village pitied me. I thought if I could prove myself, they would see me as worthy. But the forest never chose me." His voice broke, and he clenched his fist. "I let that bitterness grow until it consumed me. I'm not sure there's anything left to save." Amina placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle but firm. "The forest doesn't choose out of pity or favoritism. It chooses those who protect, not destroy. But it also teaches forgiveness. If you truly want to make amends, the forest will guide you." Ogonda hesitated, his expression torn. Then, slowly, he nodded. "How do I even begin?" Amina stood and turned to the elders. "We should help him. He knows the pain he's caused, and I believe he wants to make things right." The elders exchanged glances, their expressions conflicted. Finally, Nafila stepped forward. "If he truly seeks redemption, he must prove it. Ogonda, you will use what remains of your magic to heal the harm you've caused to the village, the people, and the forest. Only then can you earn your place among us again." Ogonda bowed his head, humility replacing the arrogance that once defined him. "I will." Amina extended her staff, its light enveloping Ogonda. The shadows lingering around him dissipated, and the villagers watched in awe as his robes transformed into simpler, earth-tone garments. The glow faded, leaving Ogonda standing before them, humbled but renewed. Over the following weeks, Ogonda worked tirelessly alongside the villagers. He repaired damaged homes, restored the crops he had withered with his spells, and tended to the injured with newfound care. Slowly, the villagers began to trust him, their anger giving way to cautious acceptance. One day, as Amina watched him teaching a group of children simple spells to protect their homes, her father approached. "You've given him a second chance, Amina. Not many would have done the same." Amina smiled faintly. "Everyone deserves a chance to choose a different path. He just needed someone to believe he could." The forest seemed to agree, its trees swaying gently in the breeze as if acknowledging the harmony restored. Uganda, once consumed by darkness, now found solace in the light of forgiveness. And so, the village thrived, united not just by their shared trials, but by the understanding that even the darkest hearts can find redemption. The village basked in a new dawn of peace and hope. Where shadows had once loomed, light now flourished, and the whispers of the forest spoke of harmony restored. The villagers, who had faced darkness together, celebrated their resilience and the courage of the one who had led them through it all. Amina stood at the heart of the village square, surrounded by smiling faces. Children danced around her, their laughter ringing like music, while elders shared stories of the trials they had overcome. Her staff, now a symbol of unity and protection, rested in her hands, its glow a reminder of the journey she had undertaken. Her parents approached, their expressions filled with pride and love. Amina's father, his voice choked with emotion, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done more than we could have ever imagined, my daughter. You've saved not just us, but the entire village." Her mother pulled her into a warm embrace. "We always knew you were destined for something great. But more than your strength, it's your heart that makes you truly remarkable." Amina smiled, tears of joy brimming in her eyes. "I couldn't have done it alone. The forest, the villagers, the ancestors, they all guided me. And so did you." The celebration continued into the evening, the village coming together in a feast to honor their newfound unity. Amina, though humbled by the attention, took the opportunity to speak to her people. "We faced great darkness," she said, her voice carrying across the gathering, "but we overcame it together. It wasn't just magic or power that saved us, it was our courage, our unity, and our compassion. These are the true strengths of our village, and they will carry us forward." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing into the forest. Amina's words resonated deeply, planting seeds of hope and determination in every heart. In the weeks that followed, Amina chose to dedicate her life to teaching and inspiring others. She gathered the village's children and taught them the stories of their ancestors, the lessons of the forest, and the importance of working together. She shared the knowledge she had gained, ensuring the next generation would be prepared to protect their home and its legacy. Uganda, humbled and redeemed, became a quiet but diligent presence in the village. Under Amina's guidance, he used his remaining magic to heal the forest and ensure its balance was maintained. Though some still regarded him with caution, he worked tirelessly to prove his sincerity. One evening, as Amina sat with her parents under the ancient baobab tree at the edge of the village, her father asked, "What will you do next, Amina? You've done so much already." Amina gazed at the forest, its trees swaying gently in the breeze. "I'll stay here, with all of you," she said. "But my work isn't done. There's so much more to learn and to teach. I want to make sure that what happened with Uganda never happens again. If we nurture unity and compassion, our village will always thrive." Her mother smiled, taking her hand. "You've become a true guardian, Amina. Not just of the forest, but of our people." The stars began to twinkle above, casting a serene light over the village. Amina felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that her journey had brought her closer to her family, her village, and herself. As the night deepened, the whispering trees seemed to carry a message through the wind, a blessing from the forest, affirming the peace she had fought to restore. And so, the village flourished, guided by Amina's legacy of courage, unity, and compassion. Her story became a tale told for generations, a reminder that even in the face of the greatest darkness, the light within and between people could prevail. The end.